To co, zaczynamy. Dobry wieczór Państwu. Dobry wieczór, dzień dobry chyba. Dni nam się wydłużyły. Bardzo się cieszymy, że Państwo do nas dotarli tak licznie, żeby spotkać się z naszymi gośćmi, z którymi będziemy rozmawiać w języku angielskim ze względu na Piera, który jest z nami, ale póki co przedstawię naszych gości po polsku. PieRem Gajewski, Katarzyna Falauke-Dziergaczow.
Cześć.
Tegoroczni rezydenci programu wymiany rezydentów Kraków-Angoulême. To druga edycja tego projektu. Bardzo się cieszę, że mogę powitać po raz drugi laureatów projektu, który prowadzimy wspólnie z Krakowskim Biurem Festiwalowym w ramach projektu Kraków Miasto Literatury UNESCO. To całoroczny program rezydencji o różnych profilach, które odbywają się po tej polskiej stronie tutaj w Pałacu Potockich. Pier mieszka tu nad nami. To rzeczywiście bardzo przyjemne miejsce do spędzania rezydencji. I tak się złożyło, że właśnie lipiec jest miesiącem komiksowym, w którym możemy się wymieniać komiksowymi rezydentami, ale pierwszym, ale być może nie ostatnim, ponieważ planujemy tego typu współpracę z innymi miastami. Zobaczymy, jak się to będzie rozwijać. Tymczasem przywitajmy naszych gości. So we are switching to English. Pierre, good to have you here. And I was just telling the work frame of our project to people who came to us today. So basically you are with us already 12 days, which is surprising really because I think you just came and this is almost the half of your stay.
Yeah, it's very surprising for me too, because you need some time to get used to the place where you are. So first of all, thank you very much for welcoming me. I'm sorry I don't speak Polish, maybe sometimes, but and yeah, the time goes very fast. So yeah.
And Kasia, you're looking forward to go to Angoulême in 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, I'm going 1st of August.
Would that be your first visit to France in general?
Actually, yeah.
Well, you haven't been to Angoulême, obviously, but you are in contact with people who organize your stay there already, so you know where you're going to live and what is the work frame of your stay there, yeah?
Yeah, I'm gonna stay with actually a very talented comic maker. Her name is Georgia, and I'm looking forward to this because I think that I can learn a lot from her.
Well, this is all about networking, I guess, also both for Kasia and for Pierre. Although you are going in 2 weeks and Pierre is already here, we thought it's a good occasion to have you both in one room and to talk a little bit more about your expectations. Well, in case of Pierre, also about his impressions of Krakow. So let's start with the reasons. Why did you ever consider to be a part of the exchange program? Both of you, like Pierre, what was your, what was taking you to come here to Krakow?
So for me it was very specific program because my father is Polish, my name is Polish, but as my parents divorced, I don't know Polish culture at all. So it was very something from the heart for me, something quite moving. I've never been to Poland. And so it's a kind of a really personal trip also, but at the same time I wanted also to fill in my universe, which is drawing and comics. So this residency was like just the perfect fit for me.
Well, actually, we have some drawings of Pierre behind us. These are drawings already done in Krakow, so we're gonna just slide them. So you had already 12 days to sketch a little bit, but is there any specific project? I mean, we're gonna get back to this. Like Kasia, what was taking you to, go to France?
Honestly, it's like I like getting in the zone when I'm working, so without any other distractions, without work or friends, just to spend some time outside of my country, just to work on my comic, just to sit in my head.
So it's kind of both. It's about networking, but it's also about concentrating on what you're doing. So is there any specific project you will be working on during your stay in Angoulême?
Yeah, actually, it's an autobiographical comic about the years I spent working as a waitress, as a barmaid, and I think it might not be a very interesting topic, but I think it's relatable, and a lot of people will find it, appealing.
Well, actually, Polish readers are very much into this autobiographical comics, and I know that they are very popular genre in Poland, and they're selling also very well. So I'm looking forward to see it, and I'm looking forward to see it sold well. So, do you expect what do you really expect from this day? I mean, I know the residence center in Angoulême. I've been there for a few times to check the conditions, to know where exactly I'm sending the residents, and as I see it, is quite strict. It's a bit like a boarding school. I mean, there are actual workshops, and people are just sitting next to each other. There's like about 30 different residents in the same time. So how do you feel about it? I mean,
Yeah, that's very interesting. I don't know anything about other people making comics in other countries. So going out of Poland, going out from my comfort zone and learning something new, seeing how they do it in other countries is just very interesting.
especially French people are treating comic very seriously, and Angoulême is a European capital of comic, and also the residence program is very well known in the world. So it seems like it's a good company and a good place to start with.
Yeah, hopefully when I'll be going to festival in Angoulême next year, maybe. I will have some friends there already. So.
And read the book.
Yep.
So that's the plan, to have it done in this half of the year and have it already published for January. Ambitious, but we keep.
Okay, maybe March.
Maybe March. Then for Kraków Comic Festival. And Pierre, is there any specific project you're sitting on coming here?
So of course I have a specific comic, which is a story I already started some months ago about mythology and the myth of the Minotaurus, but in a different way. It's actually I used to do before I was studying in Angoulême in the comic school, and I also was one of the first of the artists in residency where she will go, so I know exactly the place, and it's great to work. And I was making a lot of comics, but it was very in black and white, very heavy, I was putting a lot of thinking in my work. And this time I decided to change everything, to go into colors, to go into clear line, and to put a lot of text, while most of the time I was putting no text almost. So it's also a challenge, and it's like more funny story. And the Minotaurus came to me because I tried to put some Polish, to translate it in Polish. So if there are mistakes, it's a Google mistake, okay? But maybe not too fast, but just like... okay. And I wanted some very... Actually, most of the time I try to be funny or a happy guy, but my work most of the time show like very dark stuff, and I wanted for once to show who I am really. So that's the idea of the comics, and it also came out because for me the Minotaur is also the most famous lockdown, actually. And after the years we've been through, I thought maybe it's a good idea to have some fun about it.
Yeah, it's interesting because Krakow doesn't really, the Minotaur is related to Greece, to Crete, to the classic myths. Not really, you wouldn't associate it with Krakow with the first thought. But we have a dragon, but I don't know if it's suitable for your story. So you had this Minotaur in your head, and you decided to work a little bit here, but. You're looking forward to see it published in Polish as well?
Yeah, why not, of course.
Well, we are going to organize some meetings with the publishers for you, so hopefully they're going to like Minotaur. So how far are you with that?
So I'm half of the work done, and and I still go
Half means
it's
how many
around,
pages?
because when I write a story, it's like when I was making other stories, I don't really write everything straight. I like to discover it on the same way. So I know exactly where I go, of course, but I did 30 pages, and my idea is to make 60, but if maybe it's 70 or 80, you know. It's like I leave some open doors to see where the story drives me also.
So this is how you work. I mean, we currently have this slide with some sketches and ready pages.
So most of the time, so that's the synopsis. I think it's
Scenario.
So it's just like 2 pages, but there's all the most interesting spots without all the jokes. So the jokes are, when I work in the night, I'm just like, haha, that's so stupid, I'm going to put it. So that's the way to do it. And
so these 2 pages were a synopsis of the whole book.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then, I do this kind of little storyboards, which they evaluate, of course, during the process. And also at the beginning of the story, actually, I was working with the whole page like this. And suddenly I found out that it was a bit too heavy, like a page, needed a lot of concentration, and I wanted the story to be fast, to be easy to read and funny. So now, and then the coloring by computer. I brought some stuff out, but...
Can we show it to the public, or is it top secret?
No, it's not that secret.
Is that an original panel?
It's an original panel. It's actually 2 pages. So now I'm working 2 pages by 2 pages, because when I work in comics, for me, we have to understand that a panel has to be composed. The page where the panel is has to be composed, but it goes like straight pages. And I've always been I try very much to take care about it, actually, to think about these kind of things. Well, even if this project is a bit lighter, I keep it in mind. So in this way, I can have both sides straight to my view, actually.
Well, it's a bit unusual to draw actual near-ink pages on the same piece of paper, but I have seen that before once. It's quite unusual, because we run a comic museum in Krakow, and we do buy this kind of art, original panels for our collection, and they are usually single pages on a single piece of paper. They vary from very small to very large, but they are very rarely in pairs, especially in pairs that you're gonna see them printed in the end. So that's very interesting. And the color, you put it on the computer, yeah? Yeah,
I use Photoshop for colors, and I try to, because it's a maze, so in every different spots of the maze, I try to make different colorimetry. Yeah, colorimetry.
Chronometry? Yeah.
Oh, okay. And what is funny is actually because I'm drawing now in Krakow, as you saw.
Oh, this one is in Polish.
Yeah, I tried to put it in Polish. And I've noticed that the colors of my comics are almost very similar to the walls of Krakow. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. Those light brown, a bit red, and a special green after this. But and so this about just if I may, like maybe I leave you time to read this. Actually, it's what I like in this myth is like all the stuff which are very horrible in my comics are the real story, and so I just put jokes, but the real tough stuff are real, I mean, but belongs to the myth. So here we've got this Procuste, who is called like this, and he has this special bed, and he invites people, and he put them in the bed, and if they are too long, maybe, we can see the next page. So, so
sorry.
No.
You want to see them together?
Because it's easier to read, I think, but we can have the both pages. So the idea is if you are too long for the bed, the guy cuts your arms and legs, and if you are too small, he takes a string to like scratch your legs and arms. And in French, it became like an expression, the Procuste bed, which means like everything has to be normal in a way, you know. Mm-hmm. So that's Theseus who is telling a story before going to sleep. And what I like. I chose those 2 pages because for me that's also the language of comics, actually. Under this very funny presentation, we've got this guy putting tidying up the guy, taking the saw, And everything which is very horrible, almost, when he's cutting the legs or whatever, we don't see it. We have those two characters talking about it and expressing what it is. And for me, that's what I like in comics, is when the reader makes itself the images and makes itself its own story. And I don't have to show it, so it happens, and it happens in your way, your personal way. So if it's horrible, actually it's not totally my fault. And if we just come back to the... Sorry, I talk a lot, but...
No, it's fine.
And
we are here to listen to you, so it's perfect that you talk a lot.
At the end, I like still to put like a very, very horrible image, because I still want to shock somehow. And also in the colors, if we see the both pages, we notice very like the difference, and ending also with this, like a eye attraction somehow.
So we're gonna get back to Minotaur again, but now we're gonna just take a look on what is Kasia doing currently, and ask about her strategy in creating her stories. So, czyli tu od jedynki. Dobra. Yeah. So this is the part. It's a part of the actual story that you are working on now.
This is the first draft of the prologue to the comic. It's actually I don't want to spoil it.
Well, I'm just trying. I think we is that okay? Not the whole thing is fitting, but yeah. Well, yeah. Continue, please.
But yeah, I'm still not quite sure about the colors, because I'm trying something new. I'm trying to keep those pencil scribbles, because I think it's a nice organic texture. But I might color it in full color instead of monochrome violet or purple, or what is it?
So what is the technique? I mean, you start with the pencil, like analog.
Yep,
then
exactly.
Yep.
And then I just play with Photoshop and with colors.
So, but the lines, I mean, the black lines, are they analog or they made?
They are analog.
They are analog. So you do have these original artifacts that we
But
can
not
buy
with
to the
me.
museum later.
Sure.
Good. That's very nice and rare. I mean, lately we have this problem with acquiring original artifacts of comics, because people are less and less working analog and more digital. So we can't really possibly buy anything for the collection, because they don't have it. They say just I've made it totally in the computer, in the digital program. Let's see the other one. This one. So again, it's your autobiographical story. When is it set? Like, what time is it? When have you been working?
Around 10 years ago, and it was not long time, because it was three years only. And this prologue is actually about my recurring dreams. I had many years after finishing working as a waitress. I always dreamt that I came to work on my day off, and there was so many people inside, so many clients, that I had to work. And that's it. I just woke up, screaming, and it's similar with those dreams that people have about writing exams in school.
Yeah, I do have them sometimes. I'm 40 currently, and I still sometimes dream about mathematics in high school, and I feel like I wasn't attending at all, and I'm not going to pass it. I'm not going to be promoted to the next class, and then I realize I'm too old to be at school anymore. But this is what people call trauma or traumatic memories, I guess.
Yeah, because it was sometimes, 16 hours of work.
Was it in Poland? Where is it set?
Yep. And everything is real life events. So we have some pretty nasty stories about exploiting young people and about mobbing. But there are fun stories in it too.
So you were like 20-something that time,
yep.
yeah? Okay. Well, I guess this will appeal to the readers, because it's still not uncommon to take this kind of a part job when you are a youngster, when you're growing up. when you're discovering the adult life. How long is it going to be? I mean, what is the run of it? How many pages?
I don't know it, but I'm planning something around 40 pages.
40 pages, okay. So
But it's gonna be a big album.
okay, so like a standard size A4 Francophonian.
Perhaps, yeah.
Yeah. Pierre, by the way, your book is going to be like regular French edition, around A4 size.
This is actually more, I think, around A5 actually, because there's a new kind of wave.
Smaller, you mean?
Yeah, which is more like a bit indie publishing, which goes to this format because it's easier to read, less expensive to make, I think, and it fits to this kind of story, which are quite easy to read.
And you don't feel like your art is going to lose on that?
No, because
the size, I mean.
that's why I decided to reduce the number of panels by page. In this idea, like I wanted something to be read really easily. It's like most of the time I've always been somehow against the classical way of comics, and this time I still try to be a bit, but not totally.
Kasia, do you feel like you need this full size to show the full?
Yeah, because I like a lot of details now.
Yeah, that's what I thought actually, that there will be a lot of things in the background. And the color thing, I mean, if you are going to color it, is it going to be analog or are you going to do it in the computer already?
In the computer, yeah.
So more black and white pages to be bought. Good, let's see more of it. This is a good moment to ask about the scenario. I mean, like Pierre said, he's doing his synopsis is just 2 pages. Did you prepare an actual scenario? Like,
Yeah, I actually prepared it years ago because, you know, I'm always busy and I always have some projects that I just forget about. And I was actually able to find, you know, like the first draft of scenario, and it's horrible because it was made like 5 years ago. So I'm happy that I waited so long with the actual comic.
yeah, it matters. I mean, it's within the time it changes, and you do some adjustments to that. I guess Pierre is also working the same way, or is it a fresh thing? How long are you with the Minotaur already?
Almost a year. Actually.
Almost a year, so it's like much more shorter than Kasia is with her story. So, because for Kasia, this is like her first real album, like a full-size album. Pierre, I mean, for you, the Minotaur is already something next, yeah? You had some...
Yeah, I've been working a lot with the very short stories at the beginning in black and white, published in around the world, actually, in Glen or whatever. And I made a book, which is here. I can show.
Yeah, let's give it to the public, if I may. It's a previous book of Pierre called
Douce Rage, Sweet Rage, Jeez.
All right.
So you'll see it's quite different from the Minotaur in the style. And I've also done another book about mythology for the USA, which was published at 12,000 copies. So
how many?
12,000.
12,000, all right.
That's not my best work, but well, that's my work in USA. So
well, it's a quite high print run for Polish standards. We usually publish around 1,000 copies. If you manage to sell 3,000, you may call it a bestseller already. And if you are Grzegorz Rasiński, then you can sell probably 5,000 to 10,000 of your Torgel. So yeah, 12 sounds like really a lot for Polish standard. Current Polish standard, I mean, because during the time of the socialism, we had really huge print runs, like 100, 150,000 copies. But currently the market shrinked very much. Yeah, just as an explanation for a context of this work. So yeah, I mean, Pierre is obviously not that much excited about how Minotaur will be received because he was there before, but Kasia is probably a little bit scared about how her book will be received by the public.
Yeah, I'm still planning to self-publish it.
Oh, really? Well, this is another difference between Polish and French market. I mean, it's more and more popular to self-publish books in Poland. It's not that common in France, as I
It's coming quite much actually now.
Also rising, yeah? So did you consider ever to self-publish, or do you see benefits of this kind of strategy?
Actually, right now, a lot of artists are thinking about self-publishing because it's very hard to live from your job to get money from comics. Because, of course, publishers, well, it's very hard to live. You don't get a lot of money. So actually, when you sell by yourself or publish by yourself via also crowdfunding stuff, it may be easier to make a living out of it, strangely. But
Well,
this means, but the bad part
Sure.
is also that it's always distribution. So you have to go to every festival. It's very tiring job also. So it's there's a mix of things.
This is interesting how the crowdfunding platforms somehow, leveled the reality of Polish and French market. I mean, usually there was a very professional market in France that everyone was looking for an actual publisher, didn't really want to do anything with shipping, with signing copies, with going to the festivals. I mean, going just to sign them, but not really to sell them with their own booth. On the contrary, in Poland, it's very, very common. I mean, you have this maybe 4 to 5 festivals in Poland, bigger festivals, and you actually try to be on every of them with your merchandise, with your work. So it's not that very much new thing. But the new thing is the crowdfunding, which you probably are going to use as well.
Yeah, probably because it's getting really famous around in my group of friends. And for example, Malash, and we're gonna get, we're having the Kickstarter on that album
For własnym głosem.
Yeah.
Historie aborcyjne, własnym głosem, czyli antologia komiksów.
So every comic printed, especially in color, because that's expensive, is now getting the money to print through Kickstarter.
But if the publisher like Kultura Gniewu would see the book fitting to their standards and will ask you to be published in their publishing house, would you consider that?
Sure, yeah, call me.
Call her. If you're watching that, call her. Call her in 6 months. Sure, I mean, I'm talking about it because our previous resident, Tomasz Spel, who were in Angoulême last year, came back with the material for the Zasada Trójek comic book, and it was published by Kultura Gniewu, actually. So it seems like maybe we can repeat the pattern, which I really keep my fingers crossed for.
Like he was working on it for 3 years.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he was going to Angoulême with already a lot of ready material.
Maybe it's very slow.
Yeah, maybe you're gonna just do it much, much faster. I mean, that's a great news. And okay, so we talked a little bit about your expectations, and Kasia said she's going to be back to Angoulême for the festival. Hopefully Pierre will be back to Kraków too.
Absolutely.
On March next year to show us the Minotaurus. So when exactly are you going to finish your work with the Minotaurus? So Kasia wants to be ready for January, the latest March, and you?
Well, what I know is because for me, right now, it's a bit complex. There's a lot of stuff to see, to discover in Poland, but actually I can work very fast. I think the first 30 pages, I really did them in 2 months. So I can really of course
speed up with it.
Yeah, I can. Of
But
course.
don't make any promises.
No, that's why.
No, we are just talking theoretically, completely theoretically.
At that time, I wasn't sleeping, so it's easier to work.
Well, we wish you a lot of good sleep. How is it with the sleeping here, by the way? I mean, we are on the main market. There's a lot of tourists and a lot of noise around here. How is it to live here? I haven't never been living in the main square, so.
Well, I know every festival which goes on, I know every party which goes on just downstairs. The nice 2 discos, very, very nice music. I know when the cleaning trucks are passing in the morning, and there's a funny thing in Krakow is the sun wakes up at 4:30 in the morning, which is not exactly the same in France. And in France, we don't have curtains; we have a shelter.
Yep, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So nights are quite short. You can see my eyes; I look a bit like a panda, but I'm getting used to it, and that's fine.
Well, we have to consider that in future. Our last resident from France was Tamia Baudon. She was also living in the same apartment. She never told us that, so she was a quiet and shy girl. But we have to consider that for the future residents.
But maybe also because it was very hot when I arrived. So when it's hot, you open the windows, because if not, you're dead.
Certainly, of course, you need air circulation. So what are your expectations of living in Angoulême? I mean, as you heard, the city is not waking up at 4:30. It's waking up, what, like 10, I guess, if I remember good, from Angoulême. Have you been checking on the city, like, you know, pictures, plans, maps, whatever?
Everything, I know everything.
You know everything from Tomasz Spell.
Yep, that's right. I want to go to the museum. I want to meet all those people that are living there because, as Pierre was telling me, Angoulême has the largest group of comic book authors in France. But I want to, you know, go for a trip perhaps to see the Lascaux or like Bordeaux Museum.
Never thought about it, really. I've been to Angoulême like 5 times already.
It's like 2 hours.
It's like 2 hours
by
from
car.
there.
Yeah.
I have to do that. Yeah, we have to do that next time. We actually been to Bordeaux, which is very interesting, and I highly recommend to see the city, which is much bigger than Angoulême. It's not worth to go to Warsaw, but you know, if you go to Bordeaux, it's.
I agree.
No, I'm just joking around. We want Pierre to see as much Poland as possible, with Warsaw as well. And yeah, sure. I mean, I love Angoulême. I would move there for a month, certainly. So I'm very happy I can send people there. And well, Krakow is a bit bigger and more loud. Am I right? I mean, you've been living in Angoulême for what, like 10 years?
Yeah, 10 years, yeah, a bit more than 10 years.
It's a small city. It's like 25,000 people, so...
It's very small compared to here, and Sundays are very long. Everything is closed, you don't meet anybody in the street. Actually, there are 4 days in the year, and it's the Comics Festival where it's fun to go. But it's going to be summer, so it's always better in summer.
Well, there's a river, there are boats, there's a lot of sun. I mean, I find it really relaxing, and I guess you can focus on your work as well without all these distractions, because Krakow makes a lot of distraction, even if you're not originally from here and working here, and just being here, as Pierre said, like everything is exciting, and you want to see it, and you want to go to Zakopane and to Auschwitz and to many other places around. And Angoulême, well, Bordeaux and Lascaux, yeah, sure. But this will take 2 days only. The rest of the month you can focus, I guess.
We'll see.
I mean, there's a museum as well, which is really big and has a lot of interesting original art and papers and newspapers and different things. So I guess you can spend a lot of time there too. But this is part of the job. I mean, it's just still comic, so... good. I mean, I guess maybe that's a moment to let you ask questions if you like, because this is me talking all the time. And czy Państwo są zainteresowani czymś na temat naszych rezydentów? Not yet? Yes. Good.
Zadam tradycyjne pytanie, jeśli chodzi o rezydentów. Jaki jest wasz ulubiony komiks lub komiksy? Quel est votre BD préféré? Quels sont vos BD préférés?
Oh, the comics I prefer, like reading. I'm very into US underground comics, actually. So I'm like Charles Burns, Case Ware, Daniel Cloves, this kind of line, like Art Spiegelman or these kind of things. And of course, there are some French I like or not French, Swiss, I guess. Benoit Peters.
He's from Brussels, I guess.
Oh, so I meant the other Peters from the Blue Pills.
Frédéric Peters.
Frédéric Peters.
He's Swiss, yeah.
Yeah, and I really love his work. And and I'm also now trying to change a bit because I used to know very much underground, Robert Crumb, all these things. And now I try to see a bit more the new kind of comics, which is a bit weirdo or strange. And what was his name again? Sorry? Peters?
Frédéric Peters, tak.
Yeah, he made very great books, and also about science fiction, one in color, which is called Ama, which is just pure Gerald. And before that, he made one book which is called Lupus, and he was almost like writing it every day somehow. It's in black and white. It's just imagine a story going with a friend into the galaxy, and it's great artwork.
It's actually possible to buy them in Poland. They are being published by Kurz. Both Ama, Lupus, and... Yeah, sure, but anyway, I'm just saying they're available. And Kasia, what is your favorite?
This is going to be controversial, but I don't read too much comics. But I'm going to choose a Polish title. Right now it would be Prom and Słodkie Chłopaki, Sweet as Dudes Like Us.
Yep. So these are like contemporary Polish comics made by your people the same age, actually, that you are. Any more questions from here? Good. So I'm just interested because it's an interesting subject you leveled. How did you ended up doing comics? Because like you said, you don't read them much. And yeah, let's start with you, Kasia. Like, how did you ended up doing comics? What is your actual professional work now? You're an illustrator, yeah? Tell us more about it.
Yeah, right now I'm actually working on an animation on a movie for Animon Studio. But before that I was making mainly dolls, like polymer clay dolls.
So Animon is doing short animated movies for...
No, it's a full movie actually.
Okay, so full-length movies for like cinema purpose, all right? But what's the title?
Oh, I can't tell yet.
It's NDA. We can't know it. Okay, so it's a full motion picture, animated motion picture, and you are who? Like a character designer, or do you do backgrounds, or you do
layout
frames?
artist. So yeah, so it's just drawing the characters.
Mainly drawing the characters. But are these like poses for animation, or
Yep,
there are concepts poses? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Is it hard? I mean, like it sounds like a really hard work.
It's great. This is one I want to do for the rest of my life.
Sure. Which concludes a little bit how you ended up in comic.
Right. So I was actually drawing comics since I was 7 years old, perhaps. I was drawing comics for my peers in class to make them laugh. And it was always just a medium, an easy for me medium to tell a story. I'm just interested in telling stories. And because I can't make a movie or make an animation on my own, comic is something that I can do by myself.
Yeah, that's a very common answer when you ask people the division between movies and comics. Like comics are almost like the movies, but not the movies. I mean, you don't need that much money, that big crew, that so many factors. It's interesting how this answer is coming back and back, like just comparing. But you can do both. I mean, in a way, you can. Obviously, you have a full control of your comic and just a very, very partial control about the whole.
Yeah, I'm actually watching a lot of movies, so I don't read comics, but I watch a lot of movies, and this is where I learn the storyboard from, like, you know, what's a good composition and so on. So I'm just making storyboards, and and then it's a comic.
Pierre, what was your way to comic industry?
So for me, I read comics since I'm a kid, and I draw since I'm a kid. Like I was very much into superhero when I was small, and it was absolutely not famous at that time. So it was already some kind of special act to go and pick it up to buy it, because it was with a very small children's stuff, you know. So I had to cross this. I was feeling ashamed to buy my Spider-Man or whatever. And after some years, because when I was a kid, I didn't know, I was not even thinking that there were drawer artists behind characters, you know. And after the years, so I was like picking up Spider-Man or Daredevil or whatever, Wolverine. And after some years, I realized that I was following mainly two artists, which was Frank Miller and John Romita Jr. And I was just like, wow, very surprised about it. And there's also one Wolverine, very specific, which I was reading, and the panel didn't fit in my head. Like something was wrong, actually, didn't work out. There was something missing. And years after, I discovered it was like censored in France, because we have still a law from after Second World War, and you can put blood or whatever. At that time, they were censoring comics somehow, putting off panel. And then I realized that, okay, I was right. And these little kind of things just started to, to make like, whoa, I have a feeling for comics, actually. And the end of it, or the beginning was when I discovered Mouse, which was exactly what I wanted to discover. Like I was very into superheroes, so the gap between both are quite huge, actually. But I was all the time thinking about how to make comics for adults, like with real topics, real stuff, like autobiographical things or whatever, like just to address in a new kind of language. And for me, that's why I'm reading a lot of comics, like really a lot. And I'm really specifically, like when I do comics, maybe not the Minotaurs, but the other ones, I don't want them to be a movie or a book. I'm working mainly to make comics and to work into this language and this medium specifically.
Additional question to Pierre about the history of Polish comic. Recently, you had the chance to see some older comic works or pre-comic even at the Comic Museum. And what are your thoughts on it? I mean, did you expect, because the history of French comic is really rich, we know that all, but we are currently discovering it in Poland, and I'm curious about your reception of that.
For me, what was some kind of surprising, or not really, it's like, actually it looks a bit like the French stuff from history, like the way it goes, you've got the panel, you've got the text below, you've got composed images already, very talented artists making like a beautiful illustration. It's very, in my way, from yesterday, was very close, actually, the way the image was perceived with the text. And that's also very interesting for me. Like after this, I just started to learn about the Polish history. But while we were talking, one of the first night was also for me this totally thing which happened in the 90s when Poland got open, and that's for me very, very weird to imagine this, because as a French, and specifically in comics, we had such a big choice, and you were following what was going on in the art field or the comics field, like what was the movements, what was happening in comics field. And when I was talking with you guys, I noticed that somehow you had this regret that you couldn't follow at some point, like you had some very specific work, like authorized by the state, and suddenly you got everything, but not in the good timeline, if I understood well.
Well, it generally happened with all the culture. In 1989, it just opened widely to the American, European culture. Everything that was behind the Iron Curtain suddenly just, fallen on our heads. So it was very much mixed up. I mean, good works with bad works, like really good literature with really pulp fiction. Comic as well, like superhero, very bad stuff mixed up with very ambitious things. So, a huge mix-up, and you could drown in that, that's for sure, because it was very rapid and there was very massive, and it was really hard to decide what is worth to preserve and to get to know too. Yep. Yeah, exactly. I'm the same. Yeah, I'm the same age, so I had the same adventures. Like just. Yeah, sure. I mean, there was this rapid opening for as you said, all these characters coming in the same time. Like I told Pierre, we had Punisher, And he was really surprised. Like he said, Punisher? I mean, this character is not that important. From the French perspective, it was like a second row or third row character. We just got it in between Spider-Man and Superman, so we treated like oh, this guy is serious. Probably it's an important character. So it's these kind of things, I guess, you're referring to. A lot of interesting things like weaponics as well, and but all in the same time. And Kasia, like, do you know anything about the history of French comics? Are you looking forward to explore the comic museum, or this is just movies for you?
Yeah, this is all completely new to me.
But are you going to check out this like big exhibition on history of European comic? Because
Definitely, because I think maybe now is the time to get interested in comics.
yeah, why not? Like, I mean, you're in progress. The book is coming. You achieved being the resident. So yeah, I guess this is the proper time.
Because I was also the guide of the Comics Museum in Angoulême for a summer, like a job. And for me, what was the most intriguing to notice is like, because I was into this kind of how to remake comics, the medium, and when you watch history, you notice that guys were doing it since the early beginning, actually, like trying new ways to compose pages or playing with the bubbles, the patterns. You're just like, oh, you know.
It all happened before.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
but
like, I'm not discovering anything
exactly.
new.
But almost right at the beginning, like they were already looking for new ways to entertain.
We're talking like mid-19th century, yeah, or late 19th century, 1850s and 1880s. They already experimented a lot with the shape of the panels and speech bubbles. They came a little bit later, but yeah. I mean, for me, it's also we are discovering the history of Polish comic. Last 20 years is a big journey to really new names coming and new titles being rediscovered in the archives, in the libraries, in the museums. But what is interesting, when I went to Angoulême this year with like a book on a history of Polish comic, and I gave it to the director of the comic museum in Angoulême. She said she just flipped it and she said like, "Gosh, you have it almost the same as we." I mean. She was surprised that all this pre-comic or early comic forms in Poland were that much similar to French ones, which is surprising both to us and to you, to French people. This is really cool. I mean, it's really nice to be back to family. You know what I mean? Like, it's really good to feel like we belong, and it's not the thing that, you know, came out of the thin air, but we had all these newspapers, all this. We did it the same way. Just the Second World War divided Europe and you know, placed us on the wrong side of the Iron Curtain, and then we lost connection with the rest of the world. But we had it. We had it from the 50s of the 19th century until the... Yeah, of course, you are totally right. We had some exchange with the Hungarian, Romanian, Czechoslovakian, Bulgarian artists. So, yeah, but just a digression, I guess.
No, but yes, I think it grows up the same way, like compared to US comics or to Asian comics. Of course, South America is a bit different, but those are mainly the fourth school somehow. And for me, it was very strange to see like exactly almost the same. If the text would have been in French, I would have been okay, you know.
Good. Any more questions from the audience? Yes.
How does your workday look like? Like, I know that a lot of artists like to put music in the background and work an entire day, close themselves in their room, and some just like to take breaks, go on a walk, and get inspired by the surrounding. What is your way of working on a page, for example?
I'm gonna start. I need to get in the zone. Like I said, I can't have any distractions. For example, dirty dishes in the kitchen will distract me, so everything has to be nice and clean and tidy before I sit down and draw a comic. And yeah, and deadlines work as well.
For me, I work like it's like non-stop. Like I really work a lot when I start, like to really get into kind of bubble, quite the same. I don't listen to music or all the time the same kind of albums, like all the time. And I don't listen to podcast or radio because I've noticed that I don't hear anything after a while. I'm just focusing on my work for hours and hours and hours. And when I'm tired or when I'm happy, I just go to bed and that's it. And also, like, yeah, sometimes I eat, but not in the morning. Like I know here you eat a lot in the morning, but I just take coffee. But also, like, also in my stories, like, so before when I was doing this black and white, which was very time-consuming, I was living alone. Then I had a girlfriend for like 15, 17 years. So actually, I learned how to change my concentration, which was I can get focus and get interrupted very easily now. You know, now I'm very lucky I'm alone again, so I can spend hours working.
Yeah, the dream of the artist, feel lonely and could focus on work all the time. Well, yeah, any more questions from that side? That side? Well, I'm just curious about this tidying up things, because I have kind of the same, but I don't think I'm autistic. I just think that I'm looking for excuses not to work. So basically, all this, cleaning is not something.
Yes, precisely because.
It's not compulsive. It's just like maybe I will just clean the windows now because I should be just. The deadline is today, so this is the perfect moment. Procrastination, of course, like.
Yeah, the other thing is that every time I finish, I'm getting to the finish of the comic. I hate myself because this is really hard job to think so much. So yeah, so I'm just procrastinating this moment.
Yeah. Good. Let's close up with that. Yeah, a little bit of procrastination never killed anyone yet. Thank you all for coming, and hopefully you're gonna follow us on our Instagram. We are Kraków Comic Society, Krakowskie Stowarzyszenie Komiksowe. And please visit us at the Comic Museum, Muzeum Komiksu na ulicy Starego 7. Dziękujemy. There's a certain guest book